So Trippie Redd has released his final installment in the Love Letter series, and it's slated to sell about 38,000 copies, give or take, which makes it the lowest selling project he's ever released since 2017. No matter how you look at it, this album was a commercial failure. And I noticed there's been a very weird hate boner for Trippie on the internet in the last few years, especially on Twitter, and I could definitely make a video just spending the rest of this time trashing him. But I wanted to speak on a lot of problems with this album from a fan perspective, of someone who actually wants to see him succeed. So for any sensitive fans, this video will be harsh, but know that this is coming from a fan. First of all, this album took way too long to release. The first 4 love letters all released within a year of each other, and this album released about 4 years after the 4th one. And that's okay to do if you want to spend that time making this album truly your best body of work, but that obviously wasn't the case. I don't know anyone that's going to say that this love letter is better than the 3rd or even 4th one. But regardless of the quality, the hype for the project completely died down after 4 years. He was promoting this album after Trip at Night, and that was 2 years ago in 2021. And between that time, he made a bunch of empty promises of this album releasing, so the constant delays ended up really killing the hype for this album. Another thing was this album had no hit singles. He dropped 3 different songs, which were Took My Breath Away, Last Days, and Left for Dead, and every one of them ended up going pretty much unnoticed. So this album had no hype built up from these singles. If you look at Trip at Night, for example, that album had Miss the Rage, it had Holy Smokes, and that gave the album so much more hype, and it helped with the first week sales. Now, these two things of waiting too long to drop and no hit singles is a very basic observation, but there were a lot of problems with the album itself in terms of quality. One of the biggest problems with Trippie is he will have a really cool concept for a song, whether it's a hook or a cool beat, and he will fail to capitalize on progressing the song into something more than that and build on the concept. Whether it's not trying on a verse or not changing up the flow enough or not adding to the beat, it leads to a lot of his songs being one-dimensional. This has been a problem with him for years, but this album is especially apparent when it comes to this. You take Last Days, for example, it had a really cool sample in the snippet and a beautiful hook, but when it actually dropped, it was pretty much just the hook 2 times. If you heard the snippet, you knew what the song was going to be. Another example was Romantic Fantasy. It starts off really strong, but ends up using the same flow the entire song. And after the first minute, I kind of knew how the whole song was going to go. And I felt like a lot of songs on this project had that same issue where after a minute of listening to it, you kind of knew how the whole song was going to be. And this sort of problem where the songs are rarely built on its foundation was all over this project. And I feel like that's why this album didn't have a whole lot of songs that you could re-listen to. And if you look at this album outside of Closed Doors, which was the playlisted song, not a single song on this project has stood out from the rest, and I doubt that any song on here is going to even make Billboard. And speaking of Closed Doors, the fact that this is the song you decide to promote as the big hit is very tragic. Another issue I had with this album was I decided to have the unrealistic expectation that this album was going to sound anything like the old love letters, but I should have never done that. This album does try to recapture a lot of the old style Trippie had. Take the song Reality, for example. It's very similar to the song on the 4th love letter with the song Real Feel, but throughout this project, his voice has changed so much since the last love letter. Keep in mind, the majority of the hits Trippie Redd has dropped are from 2017 to 2018, where he was 18 or 19 years old. Since then, he's gotten a lot older, he smokes a ton, and a lot of the melodies he used to be able to sing are just not possible anymore. I even went to a live show 2 years ago in 2021, and for a song like F Love, he just couldn't hit any of the notes anymore. His current singing voice is much more nasally compared to his old one, where he sung from the bottom of his throat. And while some people are a fan of the nasally singing, I'm not really. And this project led me to the very late realization that we will likely never get the old Trippie Redd ever again. Now, that's not to say that his career is over by any means. In fact, I think the best course of action for Trippie at this point is to reinvent himself again. I will give Trippie Redd credit where credit's due. He is one of the most versatile artists I've ever heard, where he's made an R&B album, a rock album, a rage album, you name it, he's probably done it. So I definitely don't think his career is over by any means, but I really hope he uses all of this negative feedback he's getting and poor sales to motivate him to try harder next time and make something people will actually all enjoy. Anyways, those are the thoughts on the new Trippie Redd album. In all honesty, I don't think the album was completely trash at all. I thought it was fine, but it definitely had a lot of missed opportunities on it. Let me know what you guys think of the new mixtape, A Love Letter to You 5, and I'm out. God bless.
Yeah. Some say the devil voice is soothing.